You've done the hard part. You've been invited for an interview for your dream job. Congratulations! But what happens now? Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to look at all the different types of interview situation you might encounter and consider some of the questions that might be involved in the interview process in order to positively impress your potential new employer.
So the main thing to do is to make sure that before you turn up on the day that you know as much as possible what's going to be involved so that you can really prepare accordingly. Do all the research that you can, look at information on the company website, look at anything you've been sent. One thing that's really important to do is to dig out the original information you had about the job, whether you found it online, whether you saw an advert in the newspaper, and really remind yourself of what it is that they're looking for. What kind of skills and behaviours are really important to them for this position. And look at your own application. What were the points that you were emphasising, either in the form that you filled in or in your CV which you sent off in the post. Make sure that you've kept a copy of those things so that you can refer back to them.
So, you've done your preparation. What are the different types of interview you might expect to face?
Well, probably you'll find the most common type of interview is a face-to-face interview. People really enjoy having that opportunity to meet the person who's applying for the job and to find out more about them. So that personal interaction is really important. But I think as a candidate, what's really important is to remember that that is an opportunity for you as well to find out more about the position and if you're going to be well suited to it. And also to find out more about the company. What's it really like to work there? And do you think it's the kind of company and a role where you're going to get on? So it's your opportunity to test each other out, really. In a one-to-one interview, you'll probably find these days interviews are more likely to be structured in some way. So rather than being a kind of chat around your CV and your academic experience and your work experience to date, what's much more likely is that they'll have some kind of scoring system and they will have identified particular behaviours or competencies which they think are important for you to have in order to do well in this role. If you've been sent a job description, try and work out what it is that you think that they're looking for so that you've got some examples lined up ready to talk about.
Another type of interview could involve meeting with a number of people at the same time.
Well, panel interviews are something that you might come across in particular if you're applying for a job in the public sector. The idea of a panel interview is that there's a number of different interviewers involved in the process. So rather than one person making the decision about whether or not to take you to the next stage of the application process, it's actually about trying to get a more rounded view to ensure that there's no bias taking place. So what's important to remember as a candidate is, even though it might just be one person who's asking all the questions, or they rotate the questions between them, it's important to think about things like eye contact, so that you're really trying to make a positive impression with all the people that are in the room.
Although the idea of facing a panel may seem daunting, it is really a technique to make sure that you, as a candidate, get a fair chance to sell yourself to a prospective employer. And don't forget to thank them for taking the time to meet you. So those are the most common types of interview, either face-to-face or with a panel. Not every interview takes place with the candidate and the potential employer in the same room. Increasingly, technology is being used to facilitate candidate selection.
Well, telephone interviews I think you'll find, are probably becoming more common. I mean, they've always been used for jobs, in particular where customer service skills and telephone skills are going to be an important part of the role. But I think these days, particularly with competition for jobs and companies looking at how they manage an efficient process, not only are they looking at things like online applications for the first stage of the process, they might well be using a telephone interview earlier on in the application process.